Built for horsepower, filmed full throttle. Brenner video.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Brenner Video YouTube channel. And today we're at BAPS Motor Speedway, formerly Susquehanna Speedway, located in York Haven, Pennsylvania. Built in 1954, BAPS is located on 123 acres and is a 4/10 mile dirt oval track. I'd like to introduce you Kolten Gouse, General Manager of BAPS Motor Speedway. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
sir.
absolutely. I appreciate you guys coming out and got beautiful weather. Hopefully it'll be this nice next week when we open up, but appreciate having you guys here.
First thing I wanted to ask you before we get into the track is, how did you get to be the general manager of BAPS? What led you up to this point?
I mean, just like everybody else, grew up in racing. I've been around it my whole life. My dad was involved in racing. My uncles, my grandparents, all that stuff were all involved in racing. And then I raced a little bit, worked on some cars locally here, and then went out on the road in 2007 on the Outlaws for 8.5 years with Casey Kane Racing. And then
What did you do for them?
So me and Casey's brother Cale, and then we had a couple other people along the way that were there, but basically it was 3 of us per team, and I handled all the tires once we were out on the road, and then in the off season, we built cars and did all the good stuff, fun stuff, and then the fall of 2015, Scott Gobrek purchased what was Susquehanna Speedway, and reached out to me, asked me if I would have any interest in coming back home and being a part of it, and didn't really know a whole lot as far as running a racetrack. Obviously you have an idea, but once you really get in the trenches of it, you really don't really know what's going on until you get into it. But took the opportunity to come back home and do this, and now this is going into year number 11, so wow. It's crazy how time flies.
What is your vision for this track, especially for this new season?
Well, I think from the words go, obviously when we took over this facility, there was a lot of challenges of upgrades and remodeling and kind of reamping, and over the years we've purchased some properties around the speedway here that has allowed us to have some bigger events like Speed Week and World of Outlaws, and bringing in Lucas Oil. So the vision's just kind of been how can we continue to support some of these events that we want to have here? How can we have the infrastructure in place to put them on? 10 years ago we probably couldn't have a World of Outlaw race. You know what I mean? We didn't have enough land around us to support cars and people and all that stuff. So we're to the point now where we can have some bigger events. Obviously it's hard finding dates, but this upcoming season, Lucas Oil coming here for the first time, World of Outlaws, Speed Week. We have a lot of really cool events that are on the schedule for this year.
Yeah, we're excited. So I saw that you were named Northeast Promoter of the Year. What is that, and how was it?
So 2 parts there. Eastern Motorsports Press Association was one of them that named me Promoter of the Year, and then the most recent one was the RPM Promoters Workshop, which is a nationwide group, and they have different regions for different areas. And for 2025 we were the Promoter of the Year for the Northeast region, which is great. I don't get up every day thinking, man, if I put in 30 more hours I can win Promoter of the Year. I get up and just work, do what we got to do, try to do the best we can, try to put things in place to be successful. So I'm very appreciative that people took the time to vote or nominate, or however that goes to do it. I'm very thankful, but it's also not my name is on it, but there's a lot more people than that, if that makes sense. We have a lot of employees here, we have a lot of sponsors, we have a lot of volunteers and people that show up every week and do their job and make the event successcul. I get credit for that, but overall it's our whole team here.
You gotta have a good team.
Yeah, we gotta have a good team to put on that stuff. So very appreciative, but I'm more happy that the Speedway got recognized and the people that are kind of behind the scenes here.
What are your plans for the Speedway in the next 3 to 5 years, or even opening?
Obviously the direction that we're going is we're kind of I would call it a multi-purpose venue here. We still have our, bread and butter racing that we put on here, our Saturday night stuff and our sprint cars. But, over the last couple of years, we've been dabbling in some other stuff. Like, we host Lantern Fest here in September. We have Carnival across the street here in May for 4 days. So we're trying to bring in some different events and things that bring in a different group of people that would have maybe no reason to come to the racetrack because they don't know about it.
They're not typically into racing.
Correct. So, bringing in some of those events have definitely helped us, reach some different people, which is good. And the same sense is, some of that is sponsors too. We want, our sponsors that advertise here, to get seen in front of as many people as possible, not necessarily the same people every week.
Since you've been general manager, what improvements have you guys made?
Well, the biggest one this year, and it's not something that the fans see, the drivers probably don't really pay attention to, but the front stretch wall here at the Speedway here is really the last piece from 1954. Everything else here has been changed, other than underneath the bleachers that we're standing on. But it was pretty worn down. It's just really old, just falling apart. So we ripped out the front stretch wall here and brought in jersey barriers, the same that's on the back stretch, and then just other little things around the area. Like I said, probably stuff that maybe most people wouldn't see. We did some fencing work in the back pit area. We did some we cut the one bank outside of 3 and 4 to make staging a little bit easier. And like I said, just stuff that maybe the racers won't see, the fans won't see, but just stuff that we're just trying to make things a little bit more efficient, easier on our staff, and just trying to, just continue to chip away at the little things here at the Speedway. Obviously we've been working hard on, grass in our infield and, trying to get in line with, the Grove and Lincoln and Porter, where, families can go in there with the kids. It's a little bit of a challenge here because we don't have a tunnel or a bridge, but, we're working towards those goals of, hopefully, down the road here in a couple of years, we can put something like that in. But, it's like anything else. I know I say we gotta, we've done so many changes here. There's like 200 changes we've done here since 2015. And, I always say, hey, we're just trying to do little things at a time, but it seems like we just take big swings all the time. But, we have a good group of people, helpers, and, it just makes things a lot easier.
Big question I want to ask you is features done by 9 money back guarantee. What is that and how does it work?
So Saturday, July 25th, high limit is at Port Royal. We're running a normal 3-division show here, sportsman, late models, and extreme stocks. And typically in years past, that weekend has been against the Summer Nationals at the Grove. And it's just a weekend that's just has never really done well in the past. Struggles to make money. And a lot of that is just because, the Outlaws come in once a year. People want to go there. It's no different high limit to come in once a year. People want to go there. So, looking at it this off season, we were trying to figure out how to make that event try to be successful.
Yeah.
This will sound crazy, but I got the idea from the Domino's company. They were struggling to get their pizzas out, and the one brother decided that we're going to run a promotion. If you don't get your pizza in 30 minutes, it's free.
Yeah. And
I thought, that's a really unique initiative. So, I was looking at numbers, trying to run different things, and kind of went to Charlotte and proposed to Scott, our owner. I said, I got a really crazy idea. I said, to be honest, we already lose money on this event. So, our backs are already down. So I said, let's run 3 divisions. We'll start heats at 7. Let's get all 3 features done by 9 p.m. And I said, if we don't, the people in the grandstands get their money back.
Yeah.
And, it's a very off-the-wall idea and thought. It is a little scary when you think about it. But the premise of it is I'm hoping our friends and our fans and our race teams bring somebody or their neighbor that has never been to a race, knowing that if we get the features done by 9, you're going to see 3 features by 9 o'clock. You're going to be home by 10.
Yeah, that's great.
Why wouldn't you want to come?
Yeah.
And then if for some reason, if we get done at 9:30, you're still seeing early program. But when you leave, obviously, you know, we didn't make the deadline. So when you leave, you know, we're going to give you basically a voucher to be used for next week. You know, I can't physically give the money back because change and, you know, all that stuff. You know, we just wouldn't have enough change to be able to figure out everybody who gave a 20, a 50, a 10, 5, all that stuff. So, you know, but the point of it is I'm hoping that this is a talking point, you know, from when we announced it till July, that it's a talking point with fans of, man, I got to go there because, A, I want to see if they're going to get this done by 9.
Yeah.
You know, and I hope they bring a friend. I hope they bring somebody that's never been to the races. And if we don't get it done, it's still a talking piece. I got out of there at 9:30, still saw 3 features, got home at 10:30, and I get to go to the races next week for free because they didn't meet the deadline.
Yeah, I was going to say, who wouldn't want to come back for a free race?
Where else can you go to get that? It's a very unique deal. You know, ultimately, I hope we get a fair shake with weather, you know, because I want to see if we can do it. You know, more importantly, I just want fans to see that we're willing to think outside the box. We're willing to try stuff. We want to get people out of here at a decent time. And more importantly, we want to find a way to welcome new race fans.
Well, with that being said, $5 sprint cars.
It's another crazy idea.
It's another crazy idea.
Yeah, Sunday, June 7th. Kind of the same thing. You know, kind of what we just talked about. You know, that's a weekend that historically in years past have been a struggle. And it's not that fans don't want to come. It's just, you know, when in May you have the Outlaws at the Grove, you have High Limit at Port Royal. It takes a lot of money. And then at the end of June, you have Speed Week.
Yeah.
And people are saving up for Speed Week. So, you know, when you kind of get after Memorial Day, you know, there's 2 weeks there in June that are just kind of, people are either spent out with their money or they're saving it for Speed Week. So it was kind of like, okay, what can we do here to think outside of the box, make the event bigger than what it is, exciting, cool. So, you know, I ran some numbers and I went to Scott again, and I said, I got a really crazy idea. You know, the premise of it is how can we bring new fans into our sport? You know, a family of 4, you know, we could put a billboard down on 83 and put really cool photos and action shots and cars and all that stuff. And somebody that sees that for the first time goes to the website, and it doesn't matter the racetrack. And they look at it and they see the ticket prices and they realize, man, a family of 4, I don't know if I like racing. Do I want to spend $60 to go try that?
It's true.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Well, a $5 sprint car race, it's a whole lot easier to pull out a 20 for a family of 4. Or just 2 adults at $10.
Especially just come in and maybe, like you said,
Just
see
try
it for
it.
the first
Just
time.
try it. See if you like it, if you're excited by it. Or, you know, trying to bring in somebody that hasn't gone to the races in years, you know, an incentive to come out. That's where this race, I'm really hoping, hits home. You know, I would love for there to be, you know, 8,000 people here, and 4,000 of them have never been here.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in the grandstands and they hear somebody talk about Williams Grove and they go, well, what's Williams Grove? Well, that's the big thing on Friday nights that, you know, it looks like, you know, you got all these lights and that's what goes on over there. You should go check it out. That's what I'm hoping. You know, I'm hoping new fans, new people come here. They're sitting in the grandstands, they're mingling with other people, and they find out about Williams Grove or Port Royal or Lincoln, and they want to go there. You know, that's what this race is about. So, you know, I think people are going to be excited about it. You know, I hope it's one of those events that, you know, when you look back in 20 years, you go, man, I was at BAPS when they did a $5 sprint car race. You know, that's what I hope is. I hope it's a you know, a talking piece down the road, you know, where people are excited.
Heard about a 2-seater race car. What is that?
Brian Rabine, who has a local shop down the road here, he's actually one of my tech guys here, and he's owned in race cars here at the Speedway for probably 30 years. And his son kind of got out of running extreme stocks, and Brian kind of became our tech guy, and he came to me 2 years ago because last year was the first year we did it, 2025, and he said, I'd like to convert one of my extreme stocks and put a seat in it. However
awesome.
way we can do it here at the Speedway, give rides, do different things. But he's like, you know, I'd be willing to donate this.
Yeah.
We don't do it every week. You know, we don't want to like beat it to a dead horse, but you know, I'd say we probably do it 15 times a year. You know, we'll bring it out here and we have a list of fans and people that do call in or email. We put them on a list, and some of them we do, sponsors and their wives and different things. We wanted it as a interaction for people to understand what goes on.
Yeah,
when
someone that's never been in a car.
When you're sitting there, never been in a car, you can't see the tires, you can't see nothing.
Yeah.
You're strapped in, you're in a seat, can't look beside you. It's not like a passenger car. It's been really cool. It's like I said, we don't do it every week. We're very sporadic with it, but the amount of people that have been in it is very cool to see their excitement, enjoyment, and then just, I think the common thing that's always said is, man, that's not what I expected. And it's not in a bad way, but it's just like, I didn't expect it to go that far. I didn't expect it to be that noisy. I didn't expect, you can't see anything, or, man, now I understand why guys get into each other. They would have never had that experience to learn or be a part of that if it wasn't for Brian providing that, race car to, that experience.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets a chance to drive a race car. And so to be able to give those people that opportunity to enjoy that is pretty cool.
Next question. Big races this season. What are they?
So obviously, we have Speed Week, Pennsylvania Speed Week every year. It's June 28th. The World of Outlaws will be back. This will be the fourth time that they're here on July 29th. The biggest thing for us was we're hosting a Lucas Oil late model race, which is the first time they've ever been here. They've never been here. And that's paying $25,000 on Saturday, April 25th. So that's a big deal. And then the other big races. Obviously we have the $5 night, which will be big fan wise. We have Super Sportsman 100 here in September. So we have a wide variety of big events for different divisions that I think appeal to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So it's not just sprint cars or. A lot of people always say, "Oh, it's just sprint cars." We got a Lucas Oil race. We have Sportsman 100. We have some other things that, do appeal to different people. So, it's definitely we definitely have a lot of variety here.
I came up the road over here, and I looked to my right, where, to me, that used to be the pits.
Yeah.
And I've heard of this track. That is massive track.
So that is McGrew Bid Motoplex. It's a winged and wingless 600 micro track. And we have some other divisions that run there, junior sprints, 270 micros, Excel mods. But we built that 2 years ago. This will be year number 3 with it. And that opens up on Saturday, March 28th. And we're doing some construction back there right now. We're changing the banking and making more banking in the corners, put some clay down, and change the entrance and exit to the speedway. So trying to learn from some of the competitors and race teams here, of just some feedback, and just trying to do some tweaks and different things that just keep improving racing back there and the competitiveness.
Now, what days would they run?
So they race on primarily Friday nights.
Okay.
So they'll go from March 28th to I think their last race back there is October 31st, I believe. And basically we'll have 25 events or so back there on Friday nights. Now we do have some other events on Thursdays, like when the World of Outlaws are in town. We'll actually go dark that Friday, and we'll actually race on Thursday night back there.
Oh, okay.
Just we get a lot of campers that come here that stay here for the Outlaws, and same thing at the Grove. So we go on Thursday nights when they're in, just to give those people an opportunity to come out and check them out. And it's cool. One thing I will say, when we have our Outlaw race here in July, we race at the micro track that Tuesday night, and we have a lot of little kids that are in junior sprints that are 8-10 years old, and it was cool. We had a couple drivers last year, Spencer Baston and Johnny Gibson was here, and some of these things, and all these kids are so excited, because they're like, oh man, that's such and such, from the World of Outlaws. And so it's cool that those kids get to interact with those guys outside of a World of Outlaw race at the micro track. So that is cool to see, and those kids enjoy it, and that's what it's all about.
Will there be test and tunes just like what would be on the big track?
So we have one practice for them March 14th, and we might add one or two here and there throughout the season, but it is tough to have it when the big track's going on.
Yeah.
Just because back there, they're actually going the opposite way. So like when the cars the big track, they exit turn 1, drive around. Well, the micro track, they kind of go the opposite way to get up on the ramp. So it's a little tough to have them on Wednesday nights. And a lot of that too is staffing. You know, people work, and getting people during midweek races just because of work and kids and events like that. So, but yeah, it's really cool. I encourage people to come out and see it. It is cool. Before that there was a quarter midget track, and seeing those guys. This is year 11, so now that I've seen some of those guys race quarter midgets and move up into sprint cars.
Yeah, they're getting out of the big track.
Now we're seeing the the kids that are just starting out, and I watched their dads race. You know what I mean? So it is kind of cool to just see that next generation, and how racing goes with all that stuff is pretty cool.
Pulling into the track, it's full of sponsors out front.
Big thing here is no secret. It's just like having a race car. Running a racetrack is expensive. It's not. You're not making money at every event. Some things are very weather dependent, keeps fans away. So obviously, sponsors are a big deal that keeps, everything going in racing. And, we're very fortunate that, we probably have 60 plus businesses that participate here, and big and small. There's some that are just, a regular one-person electrician to, a big construction company that might have 200 employees. But, we try to treat everybody the same, and because we need the big guys and we need the small guys. And, more importantly, we try to, we have a lot of local support that helps us, around this community. And, we try to do a lot of different community events to keep the sponsors happy. We have National Night Out here in August. That's a community-driven event that a lot of our sponsors participate in, and we're always looking for new people. And just because I think sometimes people are worried about a racetrack, it's expensive to advertise there, and it's not. It's really not. I always tell people that inquire the first time is, you tell us what you want, and let's build something around you. And we've done that with a lot of different businesses. And at the end of the day, a business comes in here, they're looking for a return on their investment. We want to do whatever we can do to help them find their need. If anybody wants to participate, we're always looking for different things, whether it's, race nights or billboards or Jumbotron or kids events. We do a lot of different things. And, more importantly, we just want to, we want the businesses to be happy. If they're happy and they're enjoying it, they're coming back. It continues to let us as a Speedway continue to grow. So, that's the biggest thing.
If Brenner Video wants to get a spot on the Jumbotron, how would they go about doing that?
So, you would just call into the Speedway or email the Speedway office. We have two video boards here. We have one out here in the courtyard that runs 24/7. So, obviously all the fans see it coming in, and people that are out here on York Road. And then we have a bigger one that sits on the infield here that is double-sided, that operates just on race nights. But yeah, we can figure something out. We have a lot of different videos and different things. We have businesses that create videos, 30-second videos, and we have people that just, static ads. It all comes down to what the business, what do they want to do? What do they want to spend? And then how can we build a package around them that makes sense for them? Okay. We certainly don't want to alienate any businesses or anything like that. We won't do anything like that. We'll build something for you. So,
final question for someone that's never been to racing or been to an event or even seen it or dirt track racing, why would they want to come to BAPS?
So our biggest thing here is, and we stress this and we try to promote this as much as possible, we're a family-oriented business. So, our events, whether it's racing or non-racing events like the carnival that we have here in May, National Night Out, we want people to come here, feel safe, bring their kids, and enjoy it. You don't necessarily have to like racing. We have a lot of people that come here that aren't diehard race fans. They might not know who's this or who's that, but they come out here. It's very affordable. It's very cheap. Kids 12 and under here are free for all of our events. So, if you've never been, I would recommend coming out. Obviously bring some friends, enjoy it. More importantly, I would recommend, going to our website and seeing the different events and activities that we have for kids. And, come out and try it. Racing's not for everybody. There is a coolness factor to it when you're hanging around with friends and the energy and the excitement and what's going on. And then when you can give some of those people some up-close experiences that, might not be able to experience at other venues. Here, you can go to the pits and go up close to cars. You can't go down there in an NFL game and do that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different things here that can put you up close to some of the people that other events can't. But, more importantly, I would just have people, very family friendly, exciting. We always have something different going on, so you never know what we're going to encounter here.
And a lot of times too, these are local drivers coming to this track, so you're supporting them as well when you're...
Local drivers, local businesses. These are the people that, you're walking down through Walmart and you probably don't even know that they're here on a Saturday night racing, or businesses that are sponsoring. So, again, it goes back to just like our community here. We know that our neighbors aren't all race fans. How can we contribute to the community to show that we're a partner? And we do different things here to support those initiatives, and it's no different with a fan. We don't expect you to be here every week, but if you can come here a handful of times throughout the year and support us and support the different things that are going on here, that's what it's about.
With that being said, I really appreciate you having us
absolutely
out.
I appreciate you guys coming out and checking out the facility. Now that the snow's all gone now, it's everybody knows it's race season, so hopefully now we just need Mother Nature to participate as best as she can, and we can enjoy some racing this summer.
All right. Kolten Gouse, BAPS Motor Speedway, and we are Brenner Video.
Racing night lights and the engine scream. Clay in the air like a wild bone dream. From the backstretch roar to the checkered wave, there's nothing like racing at BAPS Speedway. Faster, louder, faster, louder. Topside cushion or dive down low. One wrong move and around you go. Engines echo, get out of the way. There's nothing like racing at BAPS Speedway. We're tearing up the dirt at BAPS Motor Speedway. Full send driving, no backing away. Checkered flag flying, fans go crazy. That's dirt track life at BAPS, baby. We're tearing up the dirt at BAPS Motor Speedway. We're tearing up the dirt at BAPS Motor Speedway. We're tearing up the dirt at BAPS Motor Speedway. We're tearing up the dirt at BAPS Motor Speedway.